Hello, every pony, and welcome back to Fandom Fridays, where we proceed to check out all the fan things that are not pony related. Why? Because we all know where this is going. I read a little fic, you guys watch, and then you proceed to enjoy me doing something silly. I think we got the pattern down now. Final Fantasy VII. My favorite Final Fantasy game, one of my favorite Final Fantasies to watch, and one of the characters I probably own the most from any game. Though, granted, I am going to get Terra as soon as it comes out, but right now I am mainly happy with my play arts Sephiroth and my play arts Cloud. I just enjoy the whole entire story. And I also like seeing alternate realities and alternate takes on said story, since after all I know it by heart by now. As such, let's look into something a little more silly featuring one of my favorite FF villains. Yep, Sephiroth. Okay, not one of my favorites. He's top. Just a little bit above Kefka. Here it is. A Tale of Two Soldiers. Sephiroth looked from his book as the tent flap swung open. He'd been sitting on his cot, back resting against the harder surface of the work desk behind him. Angela was on duty for the night, and Gaia only knew where Genesis had gone off to. Sephiroth had decided to take the rare peace of quiet and read. It wasn't likely to be attacked that night, considering their forces were still awaiting reinforcements before taking on the lieutenant in fort they now stationed outside. Genesis tried to convince headquarters they were strong enough to take the fort with the resources they had at hand, but he had been in several major skirmishes over the past few months. Given the fort's locations and fortifications, the company had insisted on a siege strategy until reinforcements arrived from elsewhere on the front, or until the fort surrendered, whichever came first. For the most part, although the fort had been relatively well defended, he didn't have much in the way of defensive capabilities, and Shinra had their supply routes. Conflicts between both sides had few and far between lately, the two settling into an uneasy standoff. It was, admittedly, very boring, but orders were orders. Angel stepped through the open flat, a heavy box planted on his shoulder. The young soldier, first class, set the box down on the ground with a thump. The sound of glass clicking echoed throughout the command tent. Sephiroth frowned at the stern look on Angel's face, eyes drifting towards the aberrant soldiers that entered the tent after him. Genesis caught his eye, rolling his eyes exasperately, gesturing at Angel that would explain everything. At least it told him that whatever happened was completely serious. If it was, Genesis would have been the first one on the fight, but the look on Angel's face was telling. He had been around for the other two first, long enough now that he could tell it was probably a disciplinary issue. Something with the men. What happened? Angel's being a killjoy, drawled Genesis, folding his arms. Angel saw him a glare. Sephiroth sighed inwardly, setting up a little straighter in case he needed to get between them. Angel and Genesis were great friends, but their interactions had been rife with tension lately. Genesis was chafing at the bit to attack, and Angel, unsurprisingly, was his defensive strategy's best proponent. The two had almost come to blows on several occasions, which made sharing the command eventful, to say the least. Sephiroth was still unused to sharing command with anyone, let alone these two first from Benora. It wasn't sure how to feel as a mediator. Thankfully, Angel didn't rise to the beat, turning towards Sephiroth instead. I got some of our thirds drunk on duty, he said. I sent them to the brig for tonight until we can figure out what to do with them. He noticed the box with his boot. I also found their stash. Apparently, they've been importing it from one of the villages. This little place called Nibelheim. Oh, come on, Angel. It's not that big of a deal, said Genesis, stepping forward. It's not like they were doing anything important. Angel turned, shooting Genesis a look of disbelief. We're in a war zone, Genesis, he said. They're soldiers. Proper contact is always important. The infantry look up to us. We have to maintain... Yes, honor and all that, said Genesis, waving his hand dismissively. They're bored. They wouldn't be bored if we would just stop sitting there and take the fort already. We came out here to fight, not walk in circles every day for 2 weeks, getting eaten alive by these goddess-cursed insects. Be that as may, we can't excuse misconduct like this, said Angel. In a tone that the conversation was over. He turned to toward Sephiroth. I gotta get back out there. Can you keep an eye on this until I figure out what to do with it? Of course, said Sephiroth, nodding once. All right. See you in a few hours. Said Sephiroth, lifting his book again. Genesis lowered his eyes to the ground, looking at it with his boot. Yeah, see ya. Angel gave Genesis another look, turning around and walking out of the tent. Genesis waited until the sound of his footsteps faded away, before letting out an exasperated sigh, collapsing backwards into his cot. Sephiroth spared him a quick glance before poignantly ignoring him, turning his eyes back towards his page. It was always best to let Genesis come out some steam before attempting to have a civil conversation with him. I can't believe angels sometimes, said Genesis. He takes his duty seriously, said Sephiroth neutrally, keeping eyes on the page. Too seriously, said Genesis. He didn't used to be this stuffy. Sephiroth frowned, looking over the top of his book at Genesis. This isn't about the intoxicated soldiers, is it? He asked. No, you know what? It's not, said Genesis, suddenly sitting up. You can't possibly be happy with this either. We're soldier first. If we're babysitting a fort we know we can take for no good reason. Sephiroth flipped the page. Orders. You're just as bad as Angel, said Genesis, getting up. Come on. You can't tell me if we didn't have the orders, you wouldn't be the first one breaking down that door. He pointed to the fake direction of the fort. Sephiroth saw him a look. Of course I would be, he admitted, his eyes back to his book. But those orders are orders. Genesis sighed, running a hand through his hair. He glanced at Sephiroth out the corner of his eye, a small frown on his face as Sephiroth turned another page. What are you reading anyway? He asked. In response, Sephiroth marked his place with his thumb, turning the book so Genesis could see the title. Genesis stared at him in disbelief. Military strategy? He asked. Gaia, do you even have a life? Sephiroth shrugged. Never found a reason to read many other books, but he wasn't going to tell Genesis that. I have nothing else to read. Wait there, said Genesis, turning on a heel and walking over to his trunk of belongings. He rubbed his along inside for a moment, back turned towards Sephiroth. Curious in spite of himself, Sephiroth set the book aside on the desk, leaning forward and resting his arm across one knee. Genesis promptly returned, carrying a leather-bound novel. Here! He said, handing it towards Sephiroth. Sephiroth stared at it suspiciously, reaching up a hand and taking it. Tell me this isn't Loveless, he said. It's not, Genesis said, letting go of the book and turning around. I do read other things, you know. It's a classic. It's about a war, so it shouldn't be too much of a change for you. There's a goddamn seeds in one there, too. He kicked his crate and stared at it, removing the lid with his boot. Sephiroth arched his eyebrows and reached down, picked up one of the glass bottles. It was filled with a clear liquid. You really shouldn't be doing that, he said as Genesis turned around, sitting on his cot. And who's going to stop me? Asked Genesis. He snored. You? He reached up and grabbed the lid, twisting it off and tossing it to the ground. Besides, I can hold my liquor. A smirk appeared on his face. Probably better than you can. Was that supposed to be a challenge? Asked Sephiroth. Only if you want it to be, said Genesis, gesturing magnanimously at the open crate. He raised his bottle to his lips, taking a long swig. His face wrinkled up. Gaia, that's foul! He pulled the bottle away, examining in front of it, or shrugging to take another swig. Sephiroth looked it away, turning to the novel in hand. I'll pass, he said, opening to the first page. Chicken! Taunted Genesis. I am not going to get into this, said Sephiroth. Genesis, that's a chocobo. Oh, come on, said Genesis, taking another drink. Live a little. What you got to lose anyway? It's not like they're ever going to demote you. Wouldn't be right. You're not on duty, said Genesis. What do you care? Come on, one drink, and I'll shut up. Sephiroth frowned, lowering the book in his hands and glancing over at Genesis. He had to admit, the stress of the past few weeks was starting to wear on him. He was a soldier first class, infused with Mako energy. He knew for a fact that he wasn't going to get drunk after one drink, let alone completely inebriated. He sighed, setting the book on one side as well, swinging his legs over the cot. Sephiroth reluctantly walked to the crate, glancing down at the assortment of dialcohol bottles. One drink, he said, looking up at Genesis. Then we throw out the bottles and close the crate up before Angel gets back. Sounds good to me, said Genesis, raising his bottle to his lips and taking another sip. Sephiroth frowned, reaching into the crate and picking up one of the balls. Suddenly, he had a really bad feeling about this. And Sephiroth learned anything about alcohol that night, it was that drinks multiplied incessantly. One drink turned to two, was turned to four, was turned to eight, was turned to, well, by that point he wasn't particularly concerned about statistics. 2 hours later, he found himself sitting on the ground from Genesis, laughing about, oh, Gaia, he couldn't even remember, with several glass bottles scattered in a tent around him. Genesis was grinning from ear to ear, sitting cross-legged as he took another drink, nearly spilling half the bottle into himself in the process. And then Angel comes out of the tree, and I swear, I've never seen him run that fast before. That old lady was chasing him with her cane, and that dog. Sephiroth laughed. Couldn't help it. For some incomprehensible reason, the image of a teenage Angel running away from an old lady with a cane, toy poodle, was unreasonably funny. A small voice in the back of his mind told him he probably had too much to drink, but he quickly silenced it by reaching out for another bottle. Unscrewing the top with much more difficulty than he had otherwise, it took another long drink. You know what? Said Genesis. Speech slurred as he leaned over and patted Sephiroth on the shoulder. He leaned too far forward, nearly falling into him. You're not that bad, Seph. You're drunk, said Sephiroth, reaching up with both hands and attempting to shove Genesis off. Though idly he could feel himself grinning. Nah, you're the one who's drunk, said Genesis, pointing vaguely in Sephiroth's direction. He laughed. You're blurry. Couldn't argue with that logic. It's your fault I'm drunk, said Sephiroth, succeeding in this time in pushing Genesis away. He turned over, landing on his back on the ground and staring up at the tent ceiling. I said one drink. I didn't make you drink more, mumbled Genesis, closing his eyes. Looked like he was about to go to sleep. Suddenly, that sounded like a good idea. Sephiroth laid back as well, staring up at the ceiling. Well, that was interesting. Did the ground always move like this? It was probably an earthquake. He should probably go find Angel to alert the men. Yes, that sounded like something he was supposed to do. After a quick nap. Maybe the earthquake could get tired and go away. He closed his eyes. Unfortunately, it happened to be the same time Genesis opened his. You know what? I've been thinking. I'm sleeping, said Sephiroth. Well, sleep later, said Genesis, sitting up. Listen now. Sephiroth cracked open an eye, staring at him. It was hard because there seemed to be more one of him. That was new. I wonder where Genesis learned that trick. What? We could take that freaking fort, said Genesis, grinning madly at Sephiroth. Who needs some men? You and me, right now. Screw Angel! Sephiroth frowned, sitting up. We can't take the fort, he said. Why not? Asked Genesis. Come on, think about it. We're strong enough. We're the hero of Wutai, you too, I guess. Sephiroth stared. That wasn't a good idea. He knew somehow that wasn't a good idea, but he was having a hard time to figure out why. He was strong enough to take the fort, wasn't he? And if Genesis was going to help. But no. There were orders or something, right? Genesis tilted his head, a cocky grin appearing on his face. Betcha I could take it first. You can't take a fort first, said Sephiroth. You either take it or you don't. Well, I'll get their stupid flag first, said Genesis. And if I don't, then, I don't know, I'll do something. No love was for a month, supplied Sephiroth. Deal! And if I get it first, next time we leave and return to Midgar, you change your uniform. Genesis, that's it. Genesis grinned, and I get to pick the new one. And you have to wear it for at least a month. No takebacks. Why uniforms? Asked Sephiroth, frowning. Because I want to change my uniform, said Genesis, tugging on a soldier first-class outfit. So boring. But I don't want to be the only one. He leaned forward, holding out his hand. So what do you say? Do we have a deal? He considered for a moment. Hard time to finding a downside to this. Reached over, clasping Genesis' hand. Fine. Deal. Genesis grinned. Elsewhere, in the Shinra camp, AGL looked up from his patrols as a chain of small explosives appeared on the side of the Wutanian fort. He reached over and placed one hand on his buster sword hilt, looking around in alarm as the camp scrambled into activity. The men around him stared at the fort, suddenly turning to him for orders. AGL opened his mouth, about to issue them. Then he saw a breathless second class run up to him, helmet slightly askew on his head. A second-class soldier reached him. Thus another loud explosion occurred, drowning out his voice so no one could hear him but Angel. AGL's eyes widened, hands clenching to fists. They did what? The Shinra camp was a flurry of activity. Men ran this way and that, scrambling to grab weapons and supplies as small, controlled explosives continued to go off in the distance. Angel kept one eye on the fort, and another on his troops, quickly overseeing the preparations and arranging them to units. They may have been inactive for a while, but they were still Shinra's finest. They sprang into action immediately, to race themselves for the assault. The soldier first ran a hand across his face as another explosion echoed, one louder and more fiery than the others. That would be Genesis. He knew he would rue the day he gave them access to fire materia. Quickly turned into a disaster of a night. At least he should be thankful that headquarters ain't got a word of this. Sir! Called the soldier third, running up to him. Director Lazarus on the line. He wants to speak with you, sir. Damn it! The lieutenant soldiers came after them, charging them with wave after wave. Between the two of them, Sephiroth and Genesis managed to keep them at bay, shuffling quickly through the halls of the fort. It was harder than it should have been. The Woodunian fort seemed to have the odd property of swaying with each step. The floor wasn't completely even, and the enemy's soldiers seemed to be blurring into a series of images as they attacked. Several times, Sephiroth felt his own sword cutting through empty air. I don't understand this fighting style! Yelled one of the Woodunian soldiers. He spoke in his native language, but Sephiroth understood Woodunian. It had been part of his training. He got Sephiroth's sword with the tip of his spear, deflecting and changing its direction as he took a step back. The spear seemed to come out of nowhere. I wonder how long it had been there. Fall back! Yelled another, this one an officer. He's trying to confuse you! Don't let you distract you! Sephiroth frowned, slicing at another one of the soldiers that rushed out at him. That one connected. In the distance, he heard Genesis set off another explosion, accompanied by a gleeful laugh. We'll have a talk with Genesis later. His explosives were getting more and more disorienting. Fall back! Yelled the commander as Sephiroth began moving through the troops, swinging Masamune and large soldiers. Release the anti-soldier weapon! Sephiroth stammering back, nearly crashing to Genesis. He raised Masamune in his left hand, the point wavering slightly, as the Faraza lumbered into the room, chain in hand. Normally, a single Faraza wouldn't be a problem with him, but this one seemed to have unique properties. He was feeling lightheaded and weak, like he might collapse at any moment. The fortress continued to spin. Genesis looked over Sephiroth's shoulder, crazed grin spreading across his face as he saw the monster. He gripped his rapier tightly in his right hand, turning around to face it. This one's mine! He soared, running over to it. He set his hand, and a ball of fire erupted at Faraza's feet, just barely missing the creature. Sephiroth snorted, raising his sword as the world continued to lurch. Genesis was so drunk he could barely run straight. How on earth was he supposed to handle Faraza? It looked like he had to save him, yet again. Sephiroth took a step forward, attempting to level his sword in front of him and charge after Genesis. The world lurched precariously as it moved, the floor seeming to fall away from underneath his feet. Sephiroth pitched forward face first, landing on the ground. That was odd. His mind felt fuzzy, blank, fingers lethargic. Was he still holding onto his sword? Oh well, he figured, turning his head, closing his eyes at the faint sound of distant gunfire. Now was as good a time as any for that nap. The world faded, consumed by blackness. It was mid-morning by the time the battle stopped. In the end, Angel and Shinra's forces had been able to convince the Wujian troops to retreat, abandoning the fort. The soldier first strode across the remains of the courtyard, kicking away charred pieces of stone as he made his way purposely towards the keep. The men immediately jumped back to let him through, reading his expression and look in his Mako blue eyes. Angel Holloway was the nicest, most approachable of the three soldiers first. But when he got that look on his face, someone was probably going to die. He yanked open the door to the prisons, not bothering the necessities. The guards had fled long ago. Most of the cells on the other side were empty. He took a deep breath in an attempt to calm himself. Striding down the long hallway towards the front door on the far end, Angel was seething. He had been up most of the night, fighting his way through the fort, and that was after taking down a stressed and angry like Director Lazard. If he had gotten the call from Ian at the conclusion of the battle had been any indication, word had made its way to Heidegger, and then filtered back to General Affairs Department. He wished that was the least of his worries. He stopped at the father's cell, barely taking a moment to glance to see if anyone was inside. He didn't bother looking for the keys, or finding a way to open the door. Instead, he took a step back and delivered a solid kick. The door splintered with a crash, morning sunlight flooding dimly lit cell. One of the cell's occupants, auburn-haired first, rolled over his side with a groan, raising his arms to cover his face. AGL, growled Genesis. Turn out the lights. It's early. AGL scowled, straying over to Genesis. He reached down, grabbing a hold of the front of Genesis' shirt. AGL yanked upwards, bringing the other first to his level and looking straight into Genesis' eyes. Genesis blinked blearily out. AGL could still smell the alcohol on his friend's breath. Genesis' expression grew pain, and he squeezed his eyes shut, turning away. Damn it, AGL, what's your problem? He asked. My problem? Asked AGL, glaring. I'll tell you what my problem is! Stand there! He shoved Genesis aside, none too gently. The other first stumbled back, leaning against the wall. He gave AGL an affronted look, brushing off his shirt with one gloved hand. AGL ignored him, glancing at the cell's second occupant. This one was laying on his side, back to him. There was no mistaking Sephiroth's head of silver head. Sephiroth, get up! Barked AGL. Sephiroth stirred, curling his side, tugging a threadbare blanket over his face. Not on duty this morning. AGL heard him mumbling. Be on up in a bit. AGL went over to Sephiroth, staring down at the other first. He frowned, resting his hands on his waist. He took a deep breath. Attention! The effect was immediate. Sephiroth scrambled up quickly, drawing himself up to his full height and offering AGL a quick salute. He immediately winced as the light struck him, covering his eyes with his hand and turning away towards the door. AGL saw Genesis glare as the other first officer started to snicker. Sephiroth opened his eyes, studying the area around him. He looked up at AGL, blinking in slow surprise. Angel? He began. AGL didn't want to hear it. Raised his hand. We're leaving, he said, looking back at Genesis. Now! Sephiroth sighed as AGL launched into yet another tirade, resisting the urge to sit back on the wooden crate behind him. His head was still pounding, and truth be told, he tuned out what felt like hours ago. He wanted nothing more than a moment to crawl back into bed and go to sleep, or failing that, wash up and get some coffee. But there would be no escape until AGL was satisfied. And, judging from the length and volume of this lecture, that wouldn't be a while. Glanced at Genesis, suddenly willing the other first to not argue and make this longer than absolutely necessary. Genesis stood sullenly with his hands at his side, giving AGL the same annoyed look he had on when the lecture started. AGL rounded it onto him again, and Sephiroth instinctively straightened up, crossing his hands behind his back. He may have been the best fighter in the Shinra army, but never let it be said he didn't have an instinct for self-preparation. Don't know what you were thinking. You two are supposed to be examples for the men, and you, Sephiroth, you're supposed to be the responsible one here. How could you let this happen? And so on and so on. Ad nauseum. Speaking of nausea, Sephiroth fought down a wave. He understood what AGL was saying, and really, he felt ashamed of himself. But at the moment, all he wanted was for AGL to shut up. All right, said Genesis, finally cutting AGL short. AGL turned towards him, glaring. All right, we get it. We're sorry. Please shut up. My head is killing me. AGL blinked, staring at Genesis as the other first took a step forward, coming to stand next to AGL. He offered AGL an unapologetic smile, patting the other first on the back. It was a stupid idea. We won't do it again. Besides, we did take the fort, didn't we? And with what? Minimal losses? No harm done. AGL looked uncertain. He stared at Genesis for a moment, as if waiting for the catch. Well, if you're sure. Right, Sephiroth? He glanced back. Sephiroth, seeing the opportunity for escape, quickly nodded. Of course, he said. I shouldn't agree with this. I'm sorry. See? Lessons learned all around. Now can I please go before my head explodes? I suppose. This won't happen again? Never again, I promise, said Genesis with a smile that might have been a smirk. He pulled away from AGL, removing his hand and hunting out the tent flap. Sephiroth quickly turned his head to the side as Genesis left, pressing a snicker. AGL glanced back at him. What? Nothing. Nothing at all. AGL turned away from Sephiroth, muttering something about irresponsible first, before hanging out the door as well. Sephiroth watched him go, wondering how long it would take for him to find the kick-me side taped crudely to his back. Sephiroth watched Genesis set his tray down next to him in the mess hall, a scowl on his face. He couldn't really blame the other first. AGL had assigned them both quite a few unpleasant punishment duties, at the director's approval. It had been 2 days since that disaster at night, and it was the first time the breaks actually coincided with each other. Screw AGL, Genesis muttered as he sat down. Sephiroth noticed he checked quickly to make sure that the dark-haired first was not, in fact, anywhere near the tent. The kick-me side might have been a little much. Sephiroth commented. Once he's Genesis picked up his spoon and stabbed his soup with it. Genesis glanced up at him. Oh, you don't know me well enough to think I stopped there. He said, shoved a spoonful of soup into his mouth, taking a moment to chew and swallow slowly. So, have you been reading the book I lent you? A little, he said. The novel was really good. It surprised him, because, so far, he only ever seen Genesis read Loveless. He took a bite out of his own food. It's interesting. Good, said Genesis. There's a world outside the training room, you know. So I've been told, said Sephiroth dryly. He took another bite, chewing thoughtfully. The events of 2 nights ago were still a bore to him. He made a piece together some of what happened, but not all of it. He did remember something about a bet. I suppose the one Ranger? What? Asked Genesis, looking at him. Oh, that! What are we going to do about that, anyway? No one won, said Sephiroth with a shrug. We can call it off, obviously. Well, if no one won, said Genesis, doesn't that mean we both lost? Sephiroth blinked, considering the implications of that. His mind was a little fuzzy with regards to that night. But, granted, the terms of the wager stated that someone had to capture the flag to win, and that someone didn't capture it, they lost. Neither he or Genesis managed to capture the flag. That would mean we would both have to fulfill the other's terms, he said, if you want to play by those rules. A spark spread into Genesis' face. Well, don't look at me. I only had to give up Loveless for a month. Easily done. But you... Sephiroth's eyes widened as he recalled his own part of the wager. Oh no. Oh yes. Oh no. Oh yes. A spark widened. He stirred his soup, taking another spoonful. So, tell me, Sephiroth, how do you feel about leather? Ah, a short and sweet little story, even if it did take place in the alternate universe. The problem is, even though it takes place in an alternate universe, I can see Sephiroth pulling something like this off in his early days as a soldier. Messing around, having a drunk bender, attacking a fort on his own. A young, inexperienced Sephiroth pulling some crap like that. For some reason, it just feels normal. But I guess the biggest point of that is, and this is probably why I'm enjoying this so much, is that in the midst of all the times we watch Sephiroth do his thing, killing Aerith, the bastard, wanting to destroy the planet, killing Virgil, ha! Near, near, near to all of you Virgil fans. It's okay. I'm a fan of Devil May Cry as well. So, don't feel too bad about me mocking. Anyway, in spite of all of that, Sephiroth was human once. He was a normal guy. I wonder what would have happened, and there are several times when I think about this, what would have happened if he never went to Nibelheim? If he, in fact, never saw his mother's body? I mean, you could say that the story never got anywhere. But then you have to ask yourself what would happen if Cloud did make it to Nibelheim at that time. Would Vincent still awoken? So many things require this Nibelheim incident to act. And Sephiroth is the core of it. Would Sephiroth have gone on to live as a normal human until he died? Would he and Cloud become friends? I mean, we know Cloud failed the soldier test. So many people forget that. We know that Cloud was just a rookie, low-class, no-good piece of shit. We get it. Soldier. So... Oh, by the way, one of the rookie soldiers, Zack Fair in my headcanon. You can't stop me! We know Cloud was like that. So, would Sephiroth have befriended him? How would Sephiroth continue on about his life? And it's stories like that that make pre-Nibelheim incident stories like this interesting. Because I like seeing Sephiroth before he became the Sephiroth we know and love. This is kind of why it does make Sephiroth to me a really fun and interesting villain. Kefka, he's been insane. He was always insane. He was always a nut job. You know it, I know it, we all know it. It just took a few losses to finally tell him, you know what? This world sucks. Boom! But Sephiroth's not that. Sephiroth was human. He did have an understanding of life. These two new characters that I never met before. I know they're technically not new, but to me they're new because I've never played Crisis Core. And that's probably the reason why I want to get a PSP. But these guys, I kind of like them. If they're anything like they are back in in the actual game, I could see myself enjoying their characterizations and enjoying a lot of playing Crisis Core. Well, that was one down, thousands more to go. I'll see you all in next time.